Peace, love, and light. Welcome to the next episode of the existence changing experience that is the Institute of Biblical Studies and Higher Consciousness. And I'm Pastor Walker, your teacher here, the leader, your guide on the road to spiritual excellence and evolution. Certainly, I give all esteem to the creator of all that gave us the life spark that we will exist in these vessels, making us the gods in this flesh that we are, that we're on the road to evolving into the state of godhood so that we can ascend into the next realm. I'm grateful for the opportunity for those that join us every week on Zoom and for those that view these videos after I post them to YouTube. I'm grateful to be with you in fellowship and the word. I just humbly ask that those of you that view these videos on YouTube, if they're a blessing to you, to please like, share, and subscribe. And for those of you that would like to be a financial gifting or blessing to this work, you can cash app us at money sign IBSHC. That's money sign IBSHC for the Institute of Biblical Studies and Higher Consciousness. It is my esteemed honor to be able to receive the word and give it to you as it is given to me. Yes, this is not your traditional channel for religion because I'm not in religion. I don't practice religion. Religion was given to us as a means of control. It is a manufacturing vessel for the archons to cipher your energy. It teaches you to go outside of self, to give your worship and power and reverence and energy to a being outside of you. And the being is not even the creator that created you or the beings. That is why I'm on the road of enlightenment and spirituality, because I was taken through the channels. I was taken through the different variations from Christianity to Hebrewism, studied a little bit of Islam, into the path of enlightenment, because I've been called in this time to help free the minds of those that are in this realm from the matrix, from the lies. And I'm going to point out some lies today. Some more Christian lies. You know, my pity goes out to those who remain in religion, who remain in Christianity, who do not seek to evolve, to discover who they truly are, so that when they die unalive, ascend from this realm, they know how to pass on into the greater realm. They know how to pass on to the realm of peace, to the realm of higher existence, and not be reincarnated back into this world where we're treated as batteries. You know, you watch the movies, you watch The Matrix, you watch Terminator. You watch these movies and you think that these movies are just fiction when they're telling you the story, because they have to tell you the truth without plainly telling you the truth. You just have to have the wisdom. Let them have an ear and an eye. Let them see and hear what's being displayed. And now that we're in the age of Aquarius, all knowledge is coming forth, because those that seize power are coming under judgment. The only problem is they're on the sinking ship and they're trying to take us with them. So that's my purpose. That's the purpose of this channel, to come to you, to give you knowledge and information so that you can intelligently or make an intelligent decision as to what to do with your existence. A lot of you are still not fulfilling the purpose and reason for you coming into this life. You learning the lessons and you going through the hell, but you're still not fulfilling your higher purpose. I know my arms are out. This is new. But if Maurice Shael can do it, I can do it too. Yeah. But I'm here as I'm receiving inspiration. And I don't claim to know it all. I don't claim to have all knowledge and wisdom. But what I do receive, because I look to receive from the Creator through the universe, that I may freely give. And what I mean by freely give, I ain't charging you for this. Now, I do ask for those of you that desire to be of a gift to this assembly, to this ministry, because it does take money to run it. But I ain't charging you. I don't have no prayer line, no $1,000 prayer lines, and no prophecy lines and all of that stuff. I'm coming to you on the straight because it's my job to help lay down the path, to tear up the fallow ground and help rebuild you so that you can get up out of this place and go to a greater place of bliss, to the Plamera. That's what we're going back to. That's where the creator of all resides. But I digress. So I'm going to go ahead and affirm us in, and we're going to pick back up with our lesson topic that we started out last week. And I'm not going to promise you that it won't be a part 3 because this is an extensive lesson, and I'm not going to rush it. Then we're going to dial back in and go a little bit deeper today. So let us affirm. Creator of all, we're grateful for the life spark that is given to us and for the spirit and wisdom that are downloaded into each of our vessels. We're grateful for our existence, but more so the evolution of wisdom in the word that would take us to a higher place that we may produce in this realm according as our desires are, that we would do away from affliction and turmoil and come into a life of bliss and spiritual excellence. We're grateful for every provision that is made, both small and great. We're grateful for every lesson learned on our path. We humble ourselves and confess that we have no sin. And in any transgressions against divine law or universal law, we repent that we may come into righteous alignment. I humbly ask that you would think through my mind and speak through my mouth those things which are beneficial to the edification of those listening. And we give honor to our ancestors, give honor to the angels and the universal energies in our spirit guide, those that are in place to help guide us and lead us and even guard us in our everyday walk. I speak these things before the Creator, that it may come before the throne of the Almighty Power. So be it. Again, welcome to the existence changing experience. That is the Institute of Biblical Studies and Higher Consciousness. Again, I'm Pastor Walker, and it's my pleasure to explore the word with you on this day. We started out with our lesson topic on the 3 wise men because we have been taught from birth about the 3 wise men that is so-called recorded in the Bible. And there are Christmas songs that are made in honor of these men, and movies and plays and all of this kind of stuff, displays. But no one ever goes into the depth of the truth of these so-called wise men that I pointed out last week that weren't so wise because they went to Herod to report a king that's supposed to be replacing them. But I digress. Last week, we talked about Herod and how he represents the ego and the inability and the unwillingness of the human ego to break tradition and all of those things. So I'm going to pick back up in the book of Matthew, reading verses 1 and 2 and verse 11. And we're going to pick up this week with the wise men. Matthew 2, verse 1. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, or Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, or Miriam, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now I talked about last week with why these men came before King Herod, and they were of course ordered by, because he was like, hey, when I want to worship him too, so when you find out, come back and tell me. And the so-called angel told them to go another way. And I posed the question, why the angel didn't tell them that? Why the Most High? He knew that Herod was going to ask that question because he wanted to try to harm the child. Why didn't he just give them instructions then through the angel? But we're not even going to go into all of that this week. We're going to go into the metaphysical representation of the Magi, as they're called in Matthew, or the three wise men. Now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the star, because I said last week, oh, you saw the star in the east, but the star didn't guide you until you went to Herod and left him. Why the star didn't just guide you past Herod, all right, to take you to the baby? You didn't have to ask Herod what a king was. So we're going to pick up with the metaphysical representation of the Magi, or the so-called wise men. Now, metaphysically, the three wise men, Melchior, Gaspar, and Belshazzar, represent the awakening of the inner wisdom and the soul's stored up spiritual resources, acting as aspects of the higher mind that seek divine truth. When they sought out the so-called new king, they were seeking divine truth. They symbolize the balanced alignment of human consciousness, intellect, soul, and spirit, necessary to recognize the Christ light, Christos light within, which comes from the Kundalini awakening, the opening of your pineal gland and your crown chakra. The Christ light, the pureness of heart, because all of your chakras are in alignment. So the wise man represents their representation of your inner wisdom, of the Christ consciousness awakening within you. The traditional names carry specific esoteric meanings. Melchior or Malikor, often considered the oldest and representing the king of Persia. This name derives from Hebrew/Semitic roots, meaning, and I don't know how in the world he represents the king of Persia, but he has Hebrew. Now I can see Semitic, but Hebrew roots, when Hebrew didn't even exist then. When there's no such thing as a Hebrew. And we're going to talk about that. But its roots meaning king of light. Metaphysically, he represents the illuminating wisdom of the spirit, bringing the gift of gold. Pay attention. Bringing the gift of gold, which signifies divine sovereignty and spiritual wisdom. Melchior represents divine sovereignty and spiritual wisdom. Now, I know some Hebrew Israelites may see this video and be like, oh, how are you going to say no such things as Hebrew? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're going to get into it. I haven't been led to delve yet. But the thought and the stirring is in here. But Melchior represents illuminating wisdom of the spirit. All right, signified by the gift of gold. which signifies divine sovereignty and spiritual wisdom. Because when you're on the path of enlightenment, when you're on the path to Christ consciousness, you want to expand your your divine sovereignty, and grow in your inner spiritual wisdom. That's where your intuition and your visions come from. That's where, and in doing this path and this journey, while awakening the chakras, okay, because my banner represents the chakra colors, you're able to produce a more pure spiritual existence and live a more power impact or power and power packful life or power packed life. Casper or Gasper or Jasper, frequently depicted as the youngest, representing the king of India. His name means treasurer, treasure keeper, or Saba's lord. Now, in so-called Hebrew language, Saba means grandfather. He represents the storage and application of internal wisdom, bringing frankincense, which symbolizes prayer, spiritual communion, and fragrance of a pure mind. Gasper represents treasurer or treasure keeper, the keeper of the treasures of inner wisdom and spiritual purity. He represents the storage and application of internal wisdom, which is what we're supposed to be growing in when we go through life's journeys, when we go through purifying our souls to walk in a greater light. Bringing frankincense, which symbolizes prayer and spiritual communion. That's getting into your meditation. That's that going within. That's that knowing yourself, knowing the higher powers, knowing the connected to the spirit or the creator of all is what the word I was trying to find. Going deeper within, not without. Spiritual communion and the fragrance of a pure mind, a mind without distractions, a mind that is not depraved, that's not full of worries and stress, but flowing in wisdom and knowledge and peace. And then lastly, Balthazar, known as the king of Arabia or Ethiopia. His name is derived from Babylonian origins, meaning God protects the king or God will help. Because when you go through the spiritual awakening, the Christ conscious awakening, and your pineal gland is functioning properly, and your crown chakra is open, the God that is within you protects you. Your intuition guides you and keeps you from trouble. It shows you when things are wrong, and it shows you future events to avoid. God protects the king or God will help. He represents the dedication of the soul to God, to the God within, going within and connected to the creator of all, the most high. He represents the dedication of the soul to God, bringing mirth, which symbolizes the transformation of the lower nature, truth, and overcoming of mortality. That's why Paul said, this corruption must put on incorruption. I must go through the process of the dark night of the soul to go into the realm of awakening, to transcend the base chakra to get to the crown chakra, and to walk in the circumference of inner peace and knowing and wisdom and spiritual power. Changing from your lower nature to the nature of that of a God. because that's what you are. So the goal that they brought, and we're going to hang in there with me. We're going to get to where these gifts come from. The gift of gold signifies divine sovereignty and spiritual wisdom. The frankincense symbolizes prayer, spiritual communion, and fragrance of a pure mind. And lastly, the myrrh represents or symbolizes the transformation of the lower nature, truth, and overcoming mortality. Because when you come into a higher consciousness, the things of this world don't affect you the way that they used to. That you can't be swayed and brought into fear about things that you can't control, because you walk in a different power. You walk in a greater confidence, a greater knowing, because you know who you are now, and you know more deeper who you are and who you're connected to. Now, some key symbolisms. The Magi represent internal esoteric initiates or stored up resources of the soul, because you have a lot of previous life experiences that you can't tap into that are in your Akashic records when you don't take the path of spiritual enlightenment and go on that journey to purify this vessel. You can't keep going to the club. You can't keep eating all this crazy food. You can't keep drinking and smoking and all the stuff that porn, all the stuff that we've been shown to tickle our fancy. It gets us distracted and it hinders our spiritual evolution. They don't want you to go from this flesh to a crystallite body, to your original existence. That's why they keep these devices in place, keep you vibrating low. Now, the Bible never said that there were only three. As you can see, it just said wise men. Now, in the Syriac Christian tradition, they were numbered as 12, actually. And 12 is a number that signifies a specific message. That's why you had 12 disciples, 12 tribes, 12 months, so on and thus forth. Later, the number became 3 because of the 3 gifts, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. That's just an assumption that was made to simplify it. The names themselves, Melchior, Gaspar, and Belshazzar, came into being 500 years after Matthew was written, from a manuscript that was written in the 6th century or from the 6th century. And the words wise men was a bad translation in itself. The original word refers to Zoroastrian priests, astrologers, because that's why they was watching the stars, and Persian sorcerers. It is the same word that is the root word for magic. Magi, magic. Put a C at the end of the magi, and you get magic. The star itself, going back to the star, because I said that. How the star gonna just lead y'all now? Now, scientifically, realistically, let's get busy. Stars are 4 light years away from Earth. When they're in place, they're in place. They ain't moving. They're not coming to Earth to point no direction to take you nowhere. That's a lie. The star did not go before them. They could see the star, and all they did was walk towards it. But it didn't move, as the Bible tried to make it sound. Stars are approximately 4 trillion miles away from Earth. So you know that star is not moving. They just read the star because they were astrologers. And again, stupidly, how you gonna go to Herod when you got the star right there? And you still didn't know exactly where he was at. There had to been an inner knowing in them to find him, what house he was in. That star didn't just sit on top of no house like they try to put it in the cartoons and movies. How the star gonna move from 4 trillion miles away just to sit on top of one house? And I know some fool out there say, well, if God did it, he can do it. That's why you're a fool. That's why you're reincarnate in this life, because you look into a God that's outside of you. And you believe in fairy tales. You believe in fables and lies that are written before you. Instead of questioning it, coming to a sound resolve in what you're reading. Now, this story is only depicted in the 2 books, and that's Matthew and Luke. And we know Luke was a Greek. Luke wasn't even a Hebrew. And Luke was written years later after Matthew. Look in Holland's Bible Dictionary. You'll find it. But there's some inconsistencies. Luke calls these men shepherds. They find the child in a manger. And Jesus, Joseph, and Mary fled to Nazareth. And you can find some of that in Luke 2, verse 39. But Matthew calls them magi or magi. They found him in a house, as we read earlier. And Jesus, Joseph, and Mary flees to Egypt, to Mizraim. And then later it says, so they can be written, I have called my son out of Egypt. And Egypt just simply means bondage. So if the Most High calling you out of Egypt, he's calling you out of bondage. He's calling you out of the bondage of ignorance and stupidity. He's calling you out of the bondage of being led by the cunning craftiness of men and their lies and their agendas to keep you subjugated. He's calling you out of the entrapment of the archons and Yahweh. Now, another inconsistency. It says that Herod killed all the children that were of toddler age, hoping that he was going to get the right one, which is why they fled. But the famous historian Josephus never recorded this massacre. This massacre was not even found in Roman or Parthian, because Rome and Parthia were the superpowers of that time. It's not even found in their history, because Herod was under the rulership of Rome. So he wasn't doing that like that, and the Caesar didn't know about it. And there's no evidence to show that it's ever been recorded. Parthia and Rome had the greatest interest in regards to the so-called king of the Jews being born, because that means he's going to lead them out from under, not just Herod, from under their leadership. That means there's going to be a war to take place. Now, I don't know how a bunch of shepherds got war worthy after being in bondage, for so many years. But I'll be your huckleberry. Getting back to the wise men or the magi, metaphysical symbolism. They represent, I just want to put that note in there. They represent the journey. It symbolizes the soul's quest for spiritual enlightenment. That's what you're supposed to be on. That's why they can play on us with the guilt of sin, even though there's no such thing. If you're going to say anything about sin, sin is just a misalignment. Forgive me, a misalignment spiritually. But you weren't born no sinner. Go back and watch my video on sin. They represent the gifts themselves represent the 3 stages of the inner path: divinity, gold; communion, frankincense; transformation, myrrh. And then if you mix them up with the communion of the inner self and the higher self and the creator of all, there's a transformation that takes place. So you go from frankincense to myrrh to gold to divinity, because that's the ultimate level that you're supposed to be reaching. Divinity. The metaphysical meaning of wise men. Wise men from the east, Matthew 2:1. The stored up resources of the soul, which rises to the surface when its depths are stirred by a great spiritual revelation, awakening, or epiphany. My words, additional. They are the inner realms of consciousness that, like books of life, have kept records of past lives and held them in reserve for the great day when the soul will receive the supreme ego or the supreme consciousness. Now, some people can remember their previous lives, some can't. How do you think you get so gifted at certain things? You just know how to do them. The Holy Ghost didn't give you that, that knowledge. That's muscle memory. That's retention from a previous life. You just don't fully remember it because as you grow, from when you come here as an infant, crying and kicking, because oh my goodness, I went into that light and I'm back here again. You are closer to the spiritual realm and your previous life knowledge at that age. That's why children say certain things that adults don't understand. They say, yeah, I'm a star and I came down and I did this and I was this. Oh, you were? You thinking they being cute and you entertaining it like goo goo gaga, and they trying to tell you evidence from a previous life. But as we grow older and we get influenced by the things that are in this world, social media, the news, the influence of the wrong people, all this stuff, porn, everything else, we grow out of that knowledge and we forget it. We go through the veil of forgetfulness. Now we got to become spiritually enlightened to regain some of those memories. We got to go through an awakening. But it's in you. Your Akashic records are inside of you. These wise men represent the wisdom that's carried within the soul from previous incarnations. The east represents the within, man's inner consciousness. They bring gifts to the Christ child, the inner resources of the spirit, which are open to the Christ mind. Now, you go through a process every 7 days of your sexual energy being built up. Now, we thinking that horniness that we experience is for us to go off and get a release. It's not for that. That's the stirring of the energy, the base of the coil of the serpent that's seeking to rise up your spine to charge your pineal gland and open up your crown chakra to take you to your God self. But we've been taught through porn and wrongful teaching and movies to squander that energy instead of harnessing it. But those who learn to harness that energy, they put it to use to create inventions and to become successful. They put that energy into other things and they become great at it. Why you think they tell athletes refrain from sex when you're in training? It ain't just so you can gain physical strength. There's a whole process that takes place. And then every 28 days, especially around your birthday, you go through what's called the Kundalini awakening, where the holy oil comes from your sacrum down your spine and then charged by the Kundalini and Kuna buffer and ignites the gas, ignites the crystals in your pineal gland, giving you a awakening, connecting you more deeper to the spiritual realm. Why do you think Shaolin monks and people, the people in India that practice that are so strong? Why do you think the Asians are so strong and so intelligent? Because they've learned to harness that energy. We've been taught to waste it. They bring gifts to the Christ child, the inner resources of spirit, which are open to the Christ mind. Gold represents the riches of the spirit. Frankincense, the beauty of the spirit. Myrrh, the eternity of the spirit. The star that the wise men saw in the east represents intuition. The wise men were guided by intuition. That's how they knew what house or stable, whichever story you want to believe, to find them in. The star didn't just sit down on top of the house. Ding, 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 ding. Here he is. They had to use their intuition, their inner knowing. It had to guide them to the child. Because there was a lot of babies still born during that time. Don't nobody talk about the other babies that were born when Jesus was born or Yahweh was born. But there were several that was born with him. Stars represent subjective and not fully understood guided lights. That's why you got to go within. That's why you have to meditate. That's why you have to read and study. I keep getting challenged by the same Israelite that's calling my posts a bunch of gibberish, saying if I want to learn something, I'll read the book, I'll read my Bible. But your Bible's flawed. But the information I'm bringing is verifiable. Incredible. But I was told not to block them because they're learning and they're bringing some exposure to my posts when they comment. So I'm gonna leave them be. But that star represents subjective and not fully understood guiding lights. Now, in Luke's version, he was found in a manger. In Matthew, he was found in a house. Now, your body is the temple of the set apart spirit, of the life spark given from the creator of all. The house. Bet. The tent. But what's the significance of the manger? In metaphysical and esoteric interpretations, the manger represents the animal life of the body, your lower self, your animalistic nature, which is where you're supposed to be evolving from. The physical, instinctual, or lower nature of humanity, in which the new spiritual life in the Christ consciousness is first manifested. It is interpreted as a mess to miracle symbol, where the divine enters the ordinary, humble, and messy aspects of human existence to provide spiritual nourishment. Animal life and human nature. The manger is the place where animals are fed, symbolizing the animal life of the body. Christ being born in the manger signifies the spiritual transformation where signifies that, Christ being born in a manger signifies that spiritual transformation begins within physical body. It does. The bread of life. Because the manger is a feeding trough, it symbolizes Jesus or Yahweh as the bread of life or spiritual food that nurtures the soul. This is reinforced by the location, Bethlehem, which translates to house of bread. Humility and accessibility. The manger symbolizes that God, Yahweh, Allah, is not intimidating or distant, but rather accessible and approachable, appearing in a low, humble place rather than a palace. Now, the creator of all has these characteristics, but the God of the Bible is intimidating and distant. Yeah. but there's a story behind that. Transformation to the ordinary. And I know y'all don't like me dropping them tidbits like that, but I ain't going into them future lessons like in depth. Wait for the lesson to come. Transformation of the ordinary. The manger shows that nothing in life is too small, broken, or ordinary for God to use. The presence of the Christ transforms a feeding trough into a throne. Surrender and inner work. Metaphysically, the manger represents a heart that is not cluttered with pride, but is humble and open and open to the divine, representing a state of spiritual surrender and inner work. I'm going to read that again. Metaphysically, the manger represents a heart that is not cluttered with pride, but is humble and open to the divine, representing a state of spiritual surrender and inner work. You have to go through the dark night of soul. You have to humble yourself. I don't know how many times that we go through things and we have to learn from those things in order to declutter the spirit, the mind, and humble ourselves and be open to divine presence. Now, the etymological esoteric links of the manger. The word manger comes from the Latin manducare, which means to eat or to chew, further cementing its metaphysical interpretation as a place where the divine provides nourishment. Therefore, it is often associated with the Eucharist or the concept of internalizing the teachings and life of Christ or the Mashiach or Messiah. Now, going back to the wise men and what they represent. There are three structures inside your brain that science calls master structures. Each one controls an entire system of the body. Each one resides in the center of the skull. You have the pineal gland in the center of the brain between the two thalamus or thalami. Okay? It produces melatonin. It is considered your third eye. And in Matthew 6:32, Yahushua said, if your eye be single, then if it be open, then the whole body is full of light. But if it be darkness or not single, the whole body is in darkness. You experience the enlightenment in the light of light when your pineal gland is open. And then you come into greater knowledge and wisdom and remembrance of your previous lives. So the first is the pineal gland. The next master structure is the pituitary gland. It's the master gland that controls all the other glands. It produces growth hormones that regulate everything from your reproductive system to your stress response. It is the gland that sends gifts, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. It sends gifts throughout the body. The pituitary comes from the Greek word pituita. I had trouble with this word earlier. Pituita, meaning phlegm or mucus, because the Greeks thought that the pituitary gland was the gland that caused the mucus to come out of your brain. So it was actually misnamed. The thalamus, which is the third structure. The thalamus is the largest structure in the diencephalon, which is the deep central core of the brain containing 10 million neurons. And its job is to regulate your senses, all your senses except for the sense of smell. Your thalamus is the gateway to your consciousness. So you got your pineal glands in between. Your thalamus is the gateway to your consciousness. If both sides of your thalamus is damaged, then you lose consciousness. And thalamus comes from the Greek word thalamos, meaning inner chamber, bride chamber, or bedroom. So when the scriptures are talking about the inner chamber and the bedroom and the 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish, but the 5 wise went into the bride chamber, wisdom entered into the mind, and foolishness and ignorance was put out. These work together to bring you to a state of inner light. Now, according to Proverbs, the 20th chapter, verse 27, it says this: the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. The spirit of the man is the candle, the light, the inner light of the Lord, of the creator of all, of the God within you. Searching out all the inward parts, searching within to know thyself and to obtain wisdom, spiritual wisdom and purity. 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, verse 6 says this: for God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, have shined in our hearts, in our open heart chakra, to give the light of knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus the Christ. The connection to the inner self, connected to the divine, provides the knowledge of the glory of the Most High through the Christ consciousness. Shining in your heart chakra, an open heart chakra, which opens the pathway for the energy to get to the throat, the pineal, and then the crown, taking you to a God consciousness. That's how you have people that have so much peace. And although people are raising hell around them and acting up with them, they don't retaliate. But things still end up happening to those people because they pull from the divine. Last scripture, Luke 11, verses 35 through 36. Take heed, therefore, that the light which is in thee be not darkness. If thy whole body, therefore, be full of light, having no part dark, the whole shall be full of light. As when the bright shining candle doth give thee light. In other words, when you open up that pineal gland, you're opening your body up to light, shining like a candle. When your pineal gland is calcified through fluoride and all this food and stuff and these chemicals and these shots that they putting in folk, you have to take the things and work to decalcify that pineal gland so that that candle can be lit and that light can shine throughout you and you can become the being of light you're supposed to be. So basically, the wise men, because there ain't no such thing as 3 wise men. That's a lie. It's written in the Bible. There ain't no 3. So preachers get up and preach that lie every year for Christmas. And in the time in between in the Bible, when they're doing a particular lesson. But the wise men represents your journey to spiritual evolution and the open enlightenment to your God self. They weren't real people. It wasn't a real recorded event in history. It is an allegory and a metaphor to teach us that we have to go from our lower nature, base chakra, all the way up to the other chakras, to spiritual enlightenment of the crown. That's what that purple represents. An open crown chakra, a God being in function that don't need the necessities of this life, but are able to draw everything to them that they need and desire. But their function is to make more others like themselves. And that means to share the light of wisdom and knowledge and to help people on their spiritual journey. I'm still getting there myself, but I'm a long way from where I used to be. This has been the existence changing experience that is the Institute of Biblical Studies and Higher Consciousness. I'm Pastor Walker. It's been a plump, pleasing pleasure to come together with you again to open up the hidden mysteries of the Bible and to correct the things that are wrong so that we can intelligently live life and ascend from this realm. Let's affirm out. Creative, we're thankful for this time in the Word and the explanation. We're thankful for the time of the giving out of truth and enlightenment. Thank you for bringing us to another level that we may ascend to and within and unlock the hidden mysteries that are inside of us to create universes, to create the euphoria and bliss of a higher life and realm, to create heaven on this earth. Thank you for the protection of our minds, our spirits, our hearts, and our physical man. We humble ourselves in gratitude and express our gratefulness for all wisdom being given unto us. And even greater answers are on their way to us even now. Now, as we depart from this Zoom, but never from your presence, we know that you go with us always and keep us till we come together again. I speak these things before the Creator, that it may come before the throne of the Most High Power. So be it. May the Creator bless you and keep you. May He cause His countenance to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May He show you His mercy and give you His peace. Peace, love, and light. Thank y'all again for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. Join us next week for more of the same. Peace.